Hey, this is Dave Funk, and I'm here with Michael Ware. As you know, I'm the president of the Iowa Firearms Coalition. My friend and our chairman of our board, Michael, is sitting next to me here at IFC Central. It's a beautiful night in Iowa, other than we're getting a little bit of smoke from the fires out in California. I'm sure many of you have already been out this year dove hunting, which kicked off the 1st of September. We had some great weather for early doves, and as many of you know, this upcoming weekend is our youth deer season, which I believe runs on early. The youth is the 19th through the 4th of October is when our youth hunting seasons kick in on disabled hunters. So we're kind of in the beginning of fall. Temperatures at night are getting a little cooler. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm sure looking forward to catch-up commercials on television. You know, we've been overwhelmed for 2 years in Iowa with the run-up to the caucuses, and we had a short stay of car commercials and ATVs, and then we're right back into election season. So I'm going to ask Michael to do a quick invocation for us, and then we'll get on with the program.
What do you have in mind? What would you like for us to do?
Just a little quick prayer for guidance.
I can do that. Dear Lord, guide us in our efforts. May we be virtuous, and in terms of virtue defined by you. And if I screw up, Lord, may it swiftly be forgiven. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I'm going to hand this over to Scott and Suzanne from the NRA. As many of you know, Suzanne is our field rep for Iowa, and Scott is out in D.C. and does our legislative stuff. So I don't know which one of you wants to start first, but they'll kind of give you an update on upcoming events and also what's happening with the election from their side. Suzanne, I'll let you take the lead here.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm just going to give a brief grassroots update on some of our election efforts and our advocacy for President Trump and Senator Ernst back in July in Iowa. We're doing peer-to-peer direct voter contact, a variety of methods. What we're doing is these aren't robocalls, these aren't mass mailers. We are sending volunteers, staff to people to talk and engage them and have conversations with them to help turn out the vote. We are doing canvassing door to door in Iowa. We are sending text messages, which allow us to engage targeted voters. We're handwriting postcards and sending those to low propensity voters. And we really need to turn out the vote and get the pro-Second Amendment, gun vote out. We recently hired a campaign staffer in Iowa, Amy Rasmussen, and I will post her contact information for everyone to see. She is organizing volunteers every single day for all of our direct voter contact in these final 45 plus days. We need all hands on deck. So if you can volunteer 20 minutes or 2 hours, we'll take anything. So the more volunteers, the better. Overall, the NRA has made well over 5.5 million direct voter contacts to our targeted states, Iowa in that target. So we have worked nonstop. We have not stopped during this pandemic. The grassroots side has been full speed ahead. We have 2 events coming up in Iowa next week. I'm looking forward to being out there. We have an event on the 24th in Council Bluffs. We'll be with Senator Dan Dawson there. It is an NRA member only meeting, and I will post a link to that as well. And then on the 26th, it's the National NRA Day of Action. All of our campaign staff and grassroots folks nationwide, and including in Iowa, will be organizing to just maximize our efforts. We will be at Crossroads Shooting Sports Saturday the 26th. I'll be there from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can stop in anytime, volunteer your time, get some free stuff, meet with staff. We'll have food, we'll have giveaways, and again, we'll be asking for your time to get involved with this election. So I will post this information. I know that the IFC folks will spread the word about these as well, and I hope to see many of you when I'm in Iowa next week.
Great, thank you so much, Suzanne. Again, folks, I'm Scott Jones, the state director in Iowa for political and legislative activity. First and foremost, just want to thank IFC, the Iowa Firearms Coalition, for all the efforts they put in throughout the legislative session and into this election cycle. Suzanne touched briefly on some of our direct voter contacts right now. Coming out on the tail end of this pandemic, there's been tremendous response to the door-to-door contacts, the phone call contacts that we've made. Folks are ready and excited to get out in the field and talk to people that they haven't seen in a while. So that's been pretty tremendous. One of the methodologies we've rolled out this year and we focused pretty heavily on is this text messaging campaign that we've developed and deployed. It targets likely voters, and it also has a much better reach and a higher response rate than many of the other actions that we've employed in the past. So that's been fantastic moving forward. The only thing legislatively I'd like to touch on is there's been some stories out from I saw one in the Free Beacon the other day, and it talked about how Everytown for Gun Safety is kind of shifting and moving away from its core message. Typically, its core message, just like the NRA, has been single issue focused. Theirs has been on the gun control front, whether it's red flag laws, universal background checks, assault weapons bans, whatever it may be. And in recent ad buys that they've made in Iowa, they've targeted Senator Ernst on taking money from big oil and from the insurance industry as well as the gun lobby. So that shift away from that single issue of gun control is pretty indicative or a major indicator that gun control is a losing issue at the polls right now. We've been saying for years that pro-freedom, pro-Second Amendment campaign is the way to win at the polls, and they are now seeing that, especially with this defund the police movement that we're seeing across the country. They are realizing that gun control is not a winning issue at the polls. So we're hoping to ride that wave into November and have some huge victories at the state level here in Iowa. Michael and Dave, thanks so much. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Scott. We really appreciate the efforts that come out of the NRA. And let's not all forget that the Iowa Firearms Coalition is the NRA affiliate in the state of Iowa. So not only are we involved in defending your Second Amendment rights, if you're at a shooting competition that's an NRA-sanctioned event, those trophies and plaques come at the end of the year. They come from your fellow members of this organization. So thanks again, Scott and Suzanne. I look forward to seeing both of you out here. Y'all remember the very first one of these we did just several weeks ago now. It's a few months ago. I talked about our Guns and Bacon initiative, and we bought 10 hogs. We thought they were going to weigh about 220 pounds apiece, kind of your standard market hog weight.
Nope.
We were off by 100 pounds. They were in the 330 to 350 range. So instead of taking maybe 12 or 1,500 pounds of meat to carrying hands in Altoona, we took down 10 hogs, 3,300 pounds to start. It was 2,600 pounds of brats and pork chops and ham steaks and bacon and some really big honking hams. The next time when I was there today dropping off something I'm going to talk about in just a second, kind of what's working out for them, for the people that need those services of that food pantry. They said, we need smaller hams next time. So we may wind up having to cut them, because when you got a 10-pound frozen ham and you hand it to a family of 4, that's food for a week and a half for most of us. One of our members of IFC is a local businessman from a very active central Iowa business family named Jordan Elwell. Said, hey, is there anything I can do to help you guys? And I'm going to have Michael hold up a couple of bottles here. He came up with us for the Iowa Firearms Coalition, a 5.56 sweet barbecue sauce. You're going to see that on the shelves of Hy-Vee and Fairway shortly. And then we got a medium, a 7.62. That's a little bit spicier, a little bit hotter. They're jalapeno based, so they're going to get you a little kick, but they're not going to kill you. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like my hair falling out when I eat hot, spicy food.
Yeah.
And you'll see some of this. You can see who here eats all the hot, spicy food.
I
don't
do.
eat it until I got the peaks. But we're pretty excited about it. A portion of the profits from the sale of this will be sent from Midwest Foods back to the Iowa Firearms Coalition quarterly. And I look forward to seeing it at the gun show in Des Moines this weekend. If you're at at Crossroads on Saturday, I'll be down there with another group. And I'll have a few bottles there available. And if the price point is right, it's going to be around $5 a bottle or so. They're 20 ounces, so you get a lot. It's a really light. You can use a traditional barbecue sauce, putting it on your meat as you cook it, or you can mop it on afterwards or dip it. I think you'll like it. It's really very good. So I mentioned Crossroads on the 26th. Suzanne's going to be there. I'll be there most of the day, and I'll be around the Des Moines Gun Show this weekend. And I'll spend some time next week over in Cedar Rapids, either Friday night or Saturday. I'll bring some for those of you that are over there so you can try it out and then press your local Hy-Vee and Fairway to get it. We've been really blessed in Iowa with our first in the nation status. And, we picked our nominee, President Trump. We have our Senate nominee. current Senator Joni Ernst, who's been a real friend of the Second Amendment the last several months. And now I'm going to hand this over to Michael, and he's going to talk about the Iowa Firearms Coalition's Political Action Committee. And yep, you can still donate to it on our website. We have a budget. We're working on some things. And Michael, I'll let you take it away with kind of what we've got planned for the next several weeks as we get down to the rubber meat in the road here of defending the Second Amendment and freedom in the state of Iowa.
All right. I'd like to circle back to to thank Dave for his work, to thank the IFC crew and our group of volunteers, and to thank the people that helped put the money into the Guns and Bacon Initiative, because basically we went out and we said, IFC is going to buy these hogs, and we're going to take these to the locker, and we're going to do this because we want to give back something. And we know that there are people who need it. COVID hit a lot of people really hard. Local friends of mine that are pork producers were basically telling me as a producer, we're having a hard time even breaking even. So I realized that 10 hogs don't make for a pork producer's future, but it's a start in the right direction. It's something that we could be proud of. And again, people's donations eventually offset the cost for buying the hogs, processing them, and then Dave was the tip of the spear on organizing that, getting them to Caring Hands, and now those will go out to people who can appreciate it, need it, and use it. And I am really tickled about that. And then to have somebody like Jordan Elwell roll up and say, you know, is there a way I can help and be involved? And then to offer something like he has with the hot sauce, and now a plan to go out and distribute it. I mean, these are good things compounding. And granted, we're a Second Amendment organization. Those are the virtues that we work on day in and day out, 7 days a week. Scott, Suzanne, you know that. You guys work 7 days a week. People don't realize it. That's what we do. But this was a nice side project, and I'm very proud of everyone. So I can't say enough about the members, the volunteers especially, and what they do, because we have a fleet of people that give their time all day long, and they don't ask for anything from it. They barely get a thanks from time to time, and I want to make sure they're recognized. So moving forward into elections and electioneering, I was considering telling everybody about the races that we were going to be involved in, but I'm a little hesitant to do that. I think it'll start to be pretty evident if you're on social media or paying attention to electioneering at all, where we're at on those and how we're planning to help. I do want to mention a couple people in the House, Representative Matt Winchell and Representative Steve Holtz. Those two guys have worked their rumps off. I mean, they give it their all. They believe in this. They bleed Second Amendment issues. I mean, they're patriots, and I'm proud to work with them. They're super people. Over on the Senate, guys like Brad Zahn, Dan Dawson, and Jake Chapman. I mean, these people work tirelessly. And so I can tell you that those 5 people just specifically deserve a great deal of accolade and thanks. And so obviously those are not the only 5 races we're playing in. It'll be more like 5 to maybe 6 times that by the time the dust all settles, and then general messages as well. But I specifically wanted to call those people out and give them our thanks and gratitude, because they really do work for us. And I think that Iowans kind of have the idea that when the session's in, which is roughly mid-January, and then you push it forward about 4 months or so, that's all legislators do. I've got news for you. These guys work on the issues all year round. They are, I don't know if you'd call it blessed or plagued with this kind of work that's in the off hours, but they really, really do. They take it home and they work hard. I'm so glad to be able to work with these folks. So that gives you some idea of some of the people that we need to be saying thanks to. And our version of thanks is voting for them, supporting them, donating to them in terms of time and finance if you can. So that's fantastic. As Dave said, you can go to iowafc.org, or you can go to the ifcpac.org and donate either place. If you're going to donate for the purposes of the PAC and political contribution, we'd prefer you go to ifcpac.org, and there's a donate tab there, and it's very simple. So you'd be surprised how far we could stretch it. There's not any paid staff here, so we make every single penny count. Does that kind of cover some of the things that you want to go over? I think it does.
And, you know, we had some questions in advance that were emailed into us today. So I'd like to touch on a few of them. One of them, the question is, he had recently had some guns removed from the home. The police report lists these guns, one of which is an AR-15 I gave him, The information lists my name, all my personal information, when, where, the FF dealer the dealer he purchased it from. Seems a lot like registration to him. Obviously, I'll give you a kind of a law enforcement answer is they need to positively identify the weapon by serial number, and then if it's recovered, get it returned to its original owner. And so if it seems like the police ask for a lot of information, they want to be able to trace it down. If you bought it at a dealer, if you bought it in a private sale, they don't really care where it came from as long as you legally acquired it and you can legally own it. And so that's really kind of, the answer to that is, yep, they ask for a lot of information. That's just like if your car is stolen. They want to know not just the plate number, but the VIN number and if you had any custom work done to it so they can recover the vehicle or all the parts. It's really no difference. It's unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast. We're an information society. One gentleman asked, can we expect some action on the employer parking lot bill? I'll defer that to Michael. You probably know better than I do on that one.
Well, those things are beginning to heat up more all the time. Where we run into conflict with parking lot bills is not everybody sees it as the same thing in terms of what's my responsibility, what's your responsibility. So those are conversations that need to take place. We need to fill those out. We need to work through those problems. But the reality is, when we see riots and looting and burning, when we see police departments get barricaded and set on fire, it proves to people, just Joe Blow American, just driving up and down the road, soccer moms in their minivans, that personal responsibility is personal. It's individual, and that we're seeing people that are asking very pointed and serious questions about their safety, where they can go and where they had not to go, and how they can be armed legally and what they should be doing. And a lot of those things go right to a parking lot. I leave my home with a permit, let's say, and a weapon, and I drive to work and I stow up my vehicle. And maybe my workplace says, well, I'd prefer that you don't have that there. And oh, by the way, the penalty might be the loss of your employment. Those situations are becoming less and less tenable. So it's a conversation we need to have. It's legislation we have worked on or chipped away at. Scott, you may know it preceded your time, but maybe the last 5 or 6 years we have had discussions on that, and addition or filings of bills of that nature. And it may go deeper than that, but I'm not certain. But to answer the question properly, yes, we're working on it. Yes, that's something we'd like to see. And it's a legitimate concern for people, whether it's private sector or government sector. So it's something we want to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'll come back and Scott, if you want to jump in here when I'm finished with this comment. It's a private property issue for an employer, what they do and don't want on their property. But at the same time, you look at what's happening across the United States. And the old Capitol building was just destroyed on the exterior with unbelievable, nasty tagging and painting at Kinnick Stadium and other facilities around the state of Iowa. We had attacks on our state Capitol building. At some point, the adults need to push back. And the parking lot bill is a good example where you say, yep, you do have private property rights, but if you're going to have employees, if you don't provide an armed guard for them, you probably ought to let them defend themselves. And so I think we're all as a group on the same sheet of paper there. It's protecting private property rights and yet not taking away our right to defend ourselves. Scott, do you have anything to add to that at this point?
Well, you summed it up great there. I think it's incredibly unfortunate what we're seeing happen, not just around Iowa, but around the country right now. And I think, provided we keep the majority in the House, and we obviously will in the Senate, this is going to give us a great jumping off point at the beginning of next legislative session. I think that parking lot carry, as Michael said, has been around longer than I have. The 3 sessions that I've worked in Iowa, it's been introduced and moved a little bit each session. Hopefully we can push it across the finish line this year. But if that bill in particular is not pushed across the finish line, I see a number of others that will be pushed across because, as you mentioned, Dave, the adults in the room will finally stand up and realize that enough is enough. We're defunding the police. We're taking, we're not going to provide police support for them if they need something. They're going to say, well, we can't also not let you carry to work and keep your firearm, your legally owned and possessed firearm in your private property in your car in a parking lot. So I do anticipate some, hopefully getting it past the first funnel and then, hopefully getting it across the finish line. I think that there's definitely going to be some opportunity based on recent events just this year.
No, I've got another. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
I wanted to pop in there. Are you okay with that?
Yeah,
Dave?
go right ahead.
One thing that I'd like for the general public to understand about a parking lot bill, when we talk about this, there's a lot of people who are listening to this that may not have the full grasp of what that is. We're basically, the situation that actually plays out is one that we need to explain, and I'll make it as quick and easy as I can. When there's a rule in place at an employer, it doesn't matter whether it's government, private, that you can't have a weapon on the parking lot in your car, stowed away, locked away, whatever. When they say that you can't do that, most people say, well, what's the big deal? It's just a parking lot. Well, if it were just a parking lot where we usually don't anticipate trouble specifically, although trouble can be anywhere, it wouldn't be that big a deal. But we need to be honest about what's truly happening here. I leave my home and I drive to work and I park in the parking lot. Then when I'm done with my workday, I leave the parking lot and I drive somewhere else and then, out to supper, meet a friend, go home, pick up the groceries, whatever it may be. When there's a parking lot ban, if you want to call it, or no allowance for the ability to stow your firearm there, what we're really saying is that becomes a de facto ban on carrying at all. Because how are you supposed to stay within the regulations and the rules of your employer and still carry? Well, you can't. What are you going to do? FedEx your gun from your house that morning and have the FedEx guy meet you down the street from your workplace in the afternoon? I mean, it can't happen. So because you don't have the ability to do that without risking your employment, you really lose out on the ability to carry throughout the rest of the day and everywhere else you go, unless you drive back home, pick up a defense tool, and then go back out on your merry way. And for 99% of the people I know, that isn't possible or tenable. So we truly need to figure out and communicate over to legislators what this actually does. And how it plays out is truly a de facto ban on carry, because if you're going to abide by your employer's wishes and not risk your own employment and the sustenance of your family, you're forced in a really bad position. And so this needs discussion in earnest. So I'm glad that somebody brought that up and mentioned it.
We have another question here about a group that runs around Iowa, Minnesota, Ohio, Wisconsin, every other state they can run around and raise money by screaming and yelling, send us dollars and we'll save the country. Well, I'm not going to give that group any accolades here, even mention their name. Let's look at records of who gets stuff done. And maybe at some point, someone that's made a donation figured out they were robbed and it was misrepresented. We'll bring a civil RICO suit against these people, these guys, and just deal with it. And the last question I had, and I think this is really an important one, and I'm going to kind of close up the whole discussion with this. From a gentleman, he said, with the ongoing rise of violent crime, how can we as men get our reluctant wives, mothers, girlfriends, daughters involved in the organization in order to protect themselves when we can't protect them? It kind of goes back to the core of who we are as a group and the kind of people that get involved in Second Amendment organizations. We, as Michael said, we take personal responsibility. And I think if anybody takes a look around at what's happening in our cities, particularly our Democrat-run cities, and what a disaster they have been, not only have the cities been financially run into the ground, but the mayors and the governors of some of those Democrat-run states have literally destroyed their economies, people's livelihoods, the value of their homes, the values of their businesses. And all you can really do with someone is show them the facts. And like we say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And I've had friends killed in a violent attack that was unprovoked. I've been involved in a couple myself where I've been injured and shot. And once you've been through that, you never want to go through that again. And look at your wife, your girlfriend, your daughter, your mom, your grandmother, your aunt, and say to them, you have the power. You can protect yourself. A guy named Sam Colt about 150 years ago invented the revolver, and it became the world's right hand. And it takes the power away from the big and the strong and the multiple numbers and returns it back to the average person. It makes us all the same size. man or woman. If a woman pulls out a 9mm pistol and saves her life with it or her kids' lives, my hat's off to the law-abiding citizen that did the right thing. And I want each and every one of you in this next several weeks that we have left before the election to look around and ask yourself, do you want what Joe Biden is saying right now, where he talks about vote for me or the country's going to burn? I'm sorry, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm going to make sure that I do everything I can, and I'm going to ask every one of you watching this tape, please do the same. Find the pro-freedom candidates in your district. Watch what comes out from the NRA with endorsements. Look around and ask real questions. And then ask yourself, why do some of these candidates, why won't they even come out in public? Why would, the woman that's running against Joni Ernst is trying to make herself look like the tough farm girl lieutenant colonel. Well, Teresa Greenfield is not that person. She is basically a fraud and a con, and she has been chosen by the coastal elites to represent Iowa. So get out and vote for Joni. Get out and vote for President Trump. We've got 4 very good, all-pro Second Amendment congressional candidates. We want to hold our majorities in the Iowa House. We want to keep our supermajority in the Iowa Senate. And pay attention at your township boards, at your city councils. Those are, for the most part, up for elections, but there's a few districts where they are. Ask yourself, is that someone that I can support? Is that the person that's going to stand up for freedom first and for my liberty and for what made America what it is, the greatest nation on earth? Ask yourself that and think about the day after Election Day, you want to be asking and looking around saying, what could I have done? What should I have done? And I want to make sure that we don't waste any effort. We don't leave anything on this playing field, because truly the beacon of freedom in the world is coming up. We have a chance to defend it. It's going to get nasty. Be ready for it. Thanks for your support, and look for the guns and bacon sauces on the shelves near you. Angela, with that, I'll say thank you very much, everybody, and good night.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.